Welcome to this new video in the VulnHub series. Today we'll be looking at a new vulnerable VM called BSIDES Vancouver. This was actually used as part of a Catch the Flag challenge at the BSIDES Vancouver Cybersecurity Conference earlier at the start of 2018. So let's go ahead and dive in and have a look at this. This is another VM which is going to be easy standard. So we have our VM set up there, both running our attacking machine Kali Linux and our VM there running in VirtualBox. So you can see there we've got our vulnerable VM saying happy hacking. So let's go ahead and full screen our attacking system and get started. So first of all, let's work out how these machines are set up. So let's have a quick look at the IP address of our attacking machine, which is 10.02.15. And we'll use our ping sweep script, which is in here. I'll just check that it's looking at the right IP range, which it is. And I'll go ahead and drag and drop that in and have a look for any other hosts. Okay, so it looks like 10.024 is going to be our system that we're going to attack. And the first thing we're going to do is just look at what services are advertised to be running on various ports on the system. I'm going to use nmap to scan there, so I'm going to paste in my nmap command there. I'll just go ahead and full screen and point it towards our vulnerable VM. So you can see there straight away we've got 3 ports which have popped up, and if their services are running on the default ports there, which they look like they are, we're probably looking at FTP service on port 21, SSH service on port 22, and also a web server running on port 80. And you can also see there it's starting to give us some information about this website, such as its founder, robots.txt file, and a backup _ WordPress directory which we can dig into later. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that down, and the first thing I'm interested in is just checking out this FTP service. So let's go ahead and put in our FTP IP address. It's asking us for a username, so first of all I'm going to see if we can get anonymous FTP access here. So I'm going to type in username anonymous. Fortunately we can get in using anonymous access here. So let's see where we're sitting and what we can see. We can see a public folder, which we'll have a quick look inside. And we can see a file called users.txt.back, which may be of interest to us. So we're going to go ahead and use the get command and just pipe that to the command line here so we can read the contents of that file. It looks like we have a list of possible user accounts we can note down. We've got an Abachi, a John, a Mai, an Anne, and a Doom Guy. So we can make a note of those and potentially use those against the other services as we go in our attack. The last thing I'm going to do is just see if I can actually use a bit of directory traversal to escape out of the FTP directory and see what else I can see. And I can once again see the public folder, so it doesn't look like that attempt was successful. But we have learned some usernames, so for the moment I'm just going to exit out of the FTP area and clear that down. And now I'm going to have a look at the FTP ports. So first of all, let's have a look at just trying to SSH to that system. And it's asking us for a root password, which we obviously don't know, or a public key. So now let's go ahead and try some of those usernames that we just learned. So we'll try a batchy. And you can see it's not prompting us for a password, but it is asking for a public key. So we may need public and private key authentication to actually get in using that account. So let's try some of the others. Let's try John. And same for John. Now let's try Mai. No luck for Mai either. There's two more. Let's try Anne. So with the Anne account, it's actually prompting us for a password. So the root account and the Anne account are potentially, we can try and brute force our way in there using password guesses. And there was one more account I wanted to try, which was Doom Guy. Okay, so public key required for Doom Guy as well. But we do know that we might be able to try and get into Anne's account. So what we can do is we're going to use a tool called Hydra to actually try and brute force our way in here. So we've done Hydra, we've specified the username as Anne, and we're going to use the RockU password list on Kali as our password file. And we're just going to point it at our vulnerable VM. And then just make sure that it knows it's an SSH service as well, and fire that off. So this looks like it's going to try about 14 million different attempts. And fortunately for us, we seem to have found the password almost immediately, so it means it's very early on in the text file. And we have the password of Princess for Anne. So again, I'm going to go ahead and clear that down. And let's try an SSH into our vulnerable VM as Anne. And use the password Princess. Great, so it looks like we were successful. We now have a shell on the system. And we are user Anne, and it also looks interesting enough like we are allowed to use sudo. So I'm definitely going to explore that in a moment. But first I'm just going to see where I've landed. Anne's home directory. And there's nothing too interesting in there. We've got a bash history file and a cache directory. I'm going to scope out this sudo here. So let's do sudo -l, and we'll need to put in our Princess password again. So the user Anne may run the following commands on the host, all. So we can run any command as sudo using Anne. It's very interesting. So let's simply do sudo bin sh. And now if we do an ID, we are now root. So very nice and easy VM there. That was a nice bit of fun just looking at the FTP service and the SSH service. Bit of brute force used, and we're into root. This is actually a catch the flag system. So let's have a quick look in the root directory and see if we can see a flag, which we can. So let's have a look at that. Congratulations, if you can read this, that means you are able to obtain root permissions on the VM. There are multiple ways to gain access remotely, as well as for privilege escalation. Did you find them all? So that's something we can dig into now. I'm certainly interested to see if there's any other obvious areas that we could use to break into the system here. So let's go ahead and exit out of our SSH and clear this down. There was one area I haven't looked at yet, which is the website. So if we bring up our web browser, just type in the IP address, and it looks like it's just the default kind of Apache landing page. But we did see in our Nmap scan there was a reference to robots.txt, which gives us a bit of information that there is a directory called backup WordPress potentially. So let's have a look at that one. Great, so it looks like we have found a deprecated WordPress blog. I can see there's a couple of posts there, one post by John, one post by admin, so some potential user accounts we can note down there. Okay, so this is interesting. Let's minimize that down and let's bring up WP scan to help us enumerate the actual users of the WordPress instance. So let's do HTTP 024. If I can actually type backup WordPress and enumerate you. So we won't bother updating the database at the moment. And there's a bit of information on various vulnerabilities there. You can see at the bottom it actually now has identified 2 users for us, and just as the post that we saw suggested, we have an admin account and an account for John. So again, let's just clear that down. And now what we could potentially do is try and actually do a bit of more brute forcing against these user accounts to see if we can get into WordPress. So let's use WP scan again to do that. So we've got our URL there, and this time I'm going to give it a word list. And we're going to use one which is available on our Kali system, which is in the John folder called password list. And we're going to specify 50 threads. We won't update the database. And you can see at the bottom there, that's actually now started brute forcing the first of those usernames, which is admin. And it says it's got about 3,500 to try, and ETA around about 10 minutes. So I'll use this opportunity to go and refresh my coffee, and we'll come back to it when that brute forcing is finished. Okay, so it looks like the Bruce Forsyth. It looks like the Bruce brute forcing has given us a response there where it says received an unknown response for Enigma for the user John. So we can go ahead and give this a go. So if we just minimize this, it hasn't actually finished running that brute force, but we do have a possible password we can try now. So let's go ahead and log into our WordPress instance with our John account and the credentials we think we've found. And put in the password Enigma. Great, so we've now successfully logged into the WordPress as an admin. So we can browse around here and start to learn a little bit more about what we might be able to leverage on this system. Let's have a look at the install plugins. Interestingly enough, this the first time I did this VM, there was an additional plugin here. There was 2 plugins which I was able to reconfigure to get a remote shell in the system. I only seem to be seeing one of the plugins now, unknown reason, but let's try and work through it. I'm sure we can use the other plugin for our reverse shell usage. I'm just going to check that I know where this plugin is situated on the system so that I can access it. So it should be in WP Content, Plugins, Akismet PHP. Let's try and get my spelling right. Great, okay, so I can access that, so that's the one I'm happy to use and inject some PHP code in here. So, first of all, let's browse into our CTF folder, and I'm going to use this PHP reverse shell text here, and just copy and paste that. Select all of this information, paste it in. We just need to make sure that it is going to be connecting back to us on the right address. So let's put in 10.0.2.15, I think our attacking machine was. And yeah, we'll come in on 5555. And we'll go ahead and update that file. Okay, now let's see if I can actually, on the top right hand area, I will start a netcat listener on port 5555. And I'm going to once again visit my Akismet PHP. Great, so you can see now in the top right hand corner we have a limited shell on our system, so we've got some access to the system now, and we can start to browse around and see what we can learn about it. So for starters, let's see if we can have a look at the users on the system, looking at the password file. So we can see a few of those that we already know. There's Doom Guy, Anne, May, John, Abachi. There's one we've not seen there before, Saned. So that's a good bit of information. Obviously we're not going to have any privileges to look at the password hashes, as you would expect, but what we can do now is we can actually transfer up one of our privilege escalation scripts to see what particular options might be available to us to elevate our privileges to root. So the first thing I'm going to do is just check that I've got the scripts that I want in my web server directory. Yep, I'm going to start with this one at the bottom, the Unix privesc check, and I'm just going to double check that my web service is running on my attacking machine, which it now is. And now, as long as we have wget installed on our vulnerable VM, then we should be able to reach out and transfer that file up. In fact, I'm just going to move myself to the temporary directory first. Okay, now let's try and use wget. Yep, it is on the system. So let's put in the address of our attacking machine. And it was called Unix privesc check.
You're very fond of trees. Well, we could survive without trees because the real origin of trees.
Has now been transferred up successfully. I'm just going to change the permissions on that, open them up. Great, and I'm going to go ahead and run that. I'm going to pipe the output to a text file in that folder. Run very quickly. I hope it actually run correctly. Let's have a look at our output text file. Now we need to provide a option standard or detailed. So let's go ahead and quickly run that again. So Unix priv esc check, and we'll do standard to start with, and we'll pipe that to our out file again. Okay, it's taking a few seconds now, so that looks a bit more like it's running properly. Few errors, and let's have a look at our output file now. Okay, so that looks a lot better. Let's scroll up to the top and have a little browse through here. So there's our errors. Okay, so hostname, a bit of information on the version of Linux there. We've got our IP address. Checking for the shadow file access, password file access, sudo as file. Okay, the cron jobs which are set to run. See if any of those are writable. Interestingly enough, we have a warning here at the bottom. So it's basically saying that there is a file called cleanup, which is in the user local bin directory, which runs as root, runs all the time by the looks of it. That's what those stars are telling me. And there's a warning that this is world writable, this file. So actually we can actually modify this file, and if this is running all the time as root, get it to do something different for us. So that looks pretty interesting to me. So I am now going to just read the contents of that file. Let's try and use the correct window pane. So I'm now going to go ahead and have a look at this file, which is called cleanup. So I'm just going to cat the contents of that. And it looks like a script which basically removes all the files from the var log apache 2 directory, and it's commented clean those damn logs. So let's see if we can modify this file to our to get it to do something for us, give us elevated access to the system. So first of all, let's I've had some difficulty echoing in apostrophes into files in this way before. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create the file which I want to create here first. So let's go into my var www.html on my local attacking machine. And I'm going to create a new file called cleanup. And within there, I'm going to put a one-line Python command. Which is here. And if you ever visited the web pages like the ones provided by Pentest Monkey, they have lots of different reverse web shell one-liners in PHP, Perl, Python, Bash, Netcat, lots of different flavors. So I'm going to use the Python one-liner here, see if this works for me. So connecting back to our attacking machine on port 9999. And I think I'm pretty happy with that now, so I'm going to exit and save that file. Just check that that is in there now. It is. Now I'm going to change the permissions on that cleanup file. And back in the top right hand terminal now, I'm just going to make sure I'm still in my temp directory, which I am. And I'm going to reach out and pick up that file using wget from the attacking machine. So we now have a new cleanup file there, which I'm just going to modify the permissions on as well. And now I'm going to basically try and echo the contents of this file into my user local bin cleanup file. So you can see echo cat temp cleanup into my user local bin cleanup. Let's run that, and now let's rerun our cat of the original cleanup file, and indeed our Python one-liner reverse shellcode has gone in there okay. So in the bottom right hand corner now, I'm just going to clear that and start a netcat listener on port 9999. And if this cron job runs, regularly like it suggested it did in that privilege escalation script that we ran, hopefully we'll get some kind of, there we go. We've got a response coming in now on port 999, and if I do a quick ID, we are now root again. So in the first way that we cracked this system is we looked at the anonymous FTP access, we found some potential usernames, we felt those out on the SSH service, and then we used Hydra to brute force our way in over the SSH service and sudo to elevate to root. After finding the flag, we then looked for another way to get root on the system. We looked at the WordPress website that we found. We brute forced our way into one of the administrator accounts, John, on the WordPress instance. Then we basically created ourselves a PHP reverse shell on one of the accessible plugin files. Once we had our low privilege access, we uploaded a script, ran a script, and found a world writable file which was actually set to run as a cron job regularly to clean out some logs. So we injected in there, because it was world writable, a one-liner Python reverse shell, and now you can see we have root through another mechanism there. So very fun machine, and I hope you enjoyed watching this, and see you in the next video.